All right, welcome back. We're doing, this is class assignment 6, where we're going to continue to look at round-around intersections, essentially T's, like we've been working on. So, in this particular exercise, I'll bring up just this model that I have right here. We're doing another round-around intersection where the branch and the header meet each other at a 90-degree angle. And that's kind of how the last two have been also, where we did similar diameters, and then we did the branch smaller than the header. Eventually we can take these and we'll turn the branch and come in at an angle and look at how that development works out. But this one I'm going to continue to go at 90-degree angles. The difference with this one is, though, as I rotate this up, is my branch intersects my header flush to one side. So it is actually a smaller diameter branch than header, so I have that going on still. And now I'm just not they're not sharing the same center line. I actually push that branch to one side here. So, and so it still is intersecting equally, like down my header, like in the middle of my header, but I just push it off to one side, kind of in that Z direction in this drawing here, kind of pushing it up. So we're going to take a look at how this affects my development. And the assignment that we're going to work on today is working with tubing still. I think I've got this drawn as kind of 1/8 of an inch tubing, and which doesn't really factor in. I just need to know my ODs. So I've got a header tube that's 3 1/4 inch tube that's 6 inches long, and I've got a branch tube diameter of 2 3/4. And then something picked up new here maybe is that my branch length is 4 inches to the longest point. So that just means that the branch is definitely going to be long on one side, and that's going to be my 4-inch dimension. So when I go to my AutoCAD here, I've got these instructions so I can reference them here on my drawing table here. I went ahead and started this drawing just the same way we would start them all. So what you see on your screen here is my setup, and you guys should be able to just draw this out using the dimensions that were given. I've even thrown in the dimensions there so I can kind of reference, make sure I got them right. 3 1/4 inch header, 2 3/4 inch branch. In that front view, I can't really tell which side I've pushed this to, whether it's flush to one side towards me or away from me. So as I take a look at the right side view, you can see that, and I could draw this either way, just for me, and whether I need to make a right or a left side. Really, when I build this is kind of symmetrical. If I go back to if I needed this branch to be one side or the other, because it's symmetrical, I could either have it flush on this side or flush on this side. Just turn my fitting around, because where I'm coming in at a 90-degree angle, is the same spacing here to the end of my header as it is here. This thing I could flop the other way and kind of have a right or a left flush to one side. So when I draw that in AutoCAD, I can kind of choose which side I would push that to. And that's what I've chosen here. So now once I've drawn that in over here in the right side view, this kind of determines that this 4-inch to the longest point, which is kind of what I wanted to point out. That's the longest point of my branch there. That's where I've kind of dimensioned that to. So that now becomes this side closest to me in the front view. So I need to make sure I understand that now this shorter side of my branch is away from me in this view. So I have now locked that in by drawing in the right side view. And so now we're ready at this point to take my projection lines across and detail out my grid lines in the front view. So to do that, maybe what I'll do is, let me go ahead and turn off my dimensioning for a minute. So I'm just going to turn that off, get them out of my way. What I like to do when I look at this is, now you can see that the header and branch center lines do not line up. So that's something to be aware of, and that's going to happen when I push a smaller diameter off center. We don't have this nice concentric lining up part, so be aware of this distance. That's going to become a factor when I go to develop my header, that my branch center line is just that much off center of my header center line. So be aware of this distance. It's going to come back to us when we develop the header. Also, when I look at this now, instead of just being able to pick up from the center line in my right side view on the branch and over to the edge and pick up those points as everything that defines over here, now I actually have to factor in what's going on this side of the branch too, because now if we just kind of take a look at this, the center line of branch that I'm kind of highlighting here hits here, and then these equal space lines around my branch, this one comes down and picks up this distance to the left here, and it shows that it's this far down on the header. Whereas if I look over here, coming back to the other line on the header or on the branch, and I go to the right of that center line on the branch here, you can see that it's like much higher up on the header. So now these 2 points, the first 2 points off of center here, do not line up. So they are going to define kind of a new look over here in the right side view. So what I do when I do these is I'll develop them one half of this branch at a time over there, and then I'll put like that half on a layer, and then I'll make another layer for the other side of the branch. So in the right side view, what I'm talking about is I'm going to develop everything left of center on one layer, and then I'm going to turn around and develop everything right of center on another layer, because they get, some of these get really close to overlapping each other, and you can really get some lines crossing each other. So the one thing in common on both of those layers is I'm going to have the center line stay on both of those layers, and whether I redraw that, and have it kind of on both layers is fine. It's just that's kind of my common point between the two views, and you'll see what I mean. So let's take the first set over. I'll develop the left side of center in the right view, which is going to be the side closest to me in the front view over here. So let's pull some lines. I'll start with center here. So this is going to be, this center line here is going to be my outside edges of my branch in this view, right? So you can see how close that is to being top dead center, but it's not top dead center anymore over here on the header. So, but that point does represent this side of the branch here and the far side of the branch here. So where I'm going to snap this line to is over here. And that becomes kind of the termination point for that outside branch. But you can see that now, that branch comes down and it doesn't meet at the top dead center here, and that's because of this. What's going on over here is that my center line of header is slightly down the circumference to the center line of branch. So this distance here is now what we're picking up visually in the front view. Just that little bit of difference here. This point does become the point to where the front side of the branch comes together, and then where the back side of the branch comes together. So, okay, so that's that point, and it would be this side of. I can come in here and straighten this out. It's going to bring it up to this line. Okay. And now I'm just going to work down to the next set of lines, which would be the next lines in. So let's repeat my line here. Grab this one, and it's going to be this set of lines and this far line here. So snap this over. All right, and tuck these in. When I actually tuck these in the front view, they may not be in the right position for the back view. So just be aware of that. Like this, when I tuck these in, I may have to adjust these for the other half of the branch too. So I'm just going to kind of do this right now to keep it clear and kind of how we've done the other ones. Let's bring this one across. Just going to grab the last two lines, and I'll tuck those. really it helps me to tuck these in because then I can see where I want to draw in what the bevel or what the miter looks like here. And then I'll have that drawn in, and then I can adjust them again on the other side bevel. So, and then I've got one more to bring over, which is actually already brought over if I'm thinking about the center line here, which maybe on this drawing the only thing I missed was I would kind of do an actual center line of header all the way over. And then I would actually take this and just be my projection line. But this actually does pick up and show me the longest point, which is my 4-inch. You know, that's the 4 inches to the longest point of the branch, and that's where that terminates right there. So essentially what I've done now is I've figured out half the branch. So I can go ahead and draw this in as kind of a solid line. Like this to me in this front view is a solid line. And so let's go ahead and connect this. This might turn out to be just slightly curved. If I redo that, it's pretty straight. It's almost a pretty straight cut, but I can see if I just pulled it as a straight line, you can see I would miss that corner right here. So it's just slightly got a curve to it, so I'm just arcing and second pointing that. And then finishing it off right there. So that details the front side bevel. So that's like where that branch meets that header when it's in that front view. Looks like that, which is only half the branch. So to me, what I would do is I would, I would have had maybe another layer. I've got a bunch of layers for other things here. I'm just going to go ahead and make a new layer. I'm just going to call layer 1. Maybe I'll make 2 new layers. I'm just modifying an existing drawing is why I have some other layers up on here. But so now if I wanted actually to move some of these, some of my projection lines that might get in the way of my other, when I develop my other half a branch, I'm going to go ahead and move these to one of those new layers I just created. Layer 1. All right. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and turn off layer 1 and clean that up. So I'm going to keep my miter bevel in here just to see it. That's the work that I, use layer 1, put that in there for me. I'm going to go ahead and leave that up and remove the reference lines. I just want them out of my way so I can work on the other half of the bevel here, or the other half of the branch. So I'm going to go back to some projection lines. So I'll take this over again. I said I'll use the center line as kind of a common point across both of these, which is going to be right where I terminated it last time, same point. So that's my center line. Now I'm going to pull the next one down this way, and it's going to be the next set of lines in from there, right? So that's, if I pull this across, it's actually going to be this line and this line over here. So I wait for it to be perpendicular and I snap to it. So what we get here is a look at where, and I'll draw that in just a minute, but all this stuff gets really close together here. And it's because I'm looking at kind of the backside roll of the header in this view. So I'm trying to picture this rolling away from me. Once that header is top dead center, then it falls away from me. And so this line that I just snapped to is actually, in a hidden view from what I can see in this front view. And now let's pick up this next line. And it's going to be the next set of lines in, that one and that one. And these are the long. I haven't retucked those. Those were the initial tucks from the front side development. I could choose to tuck these in if it helps me keep that in, or I can just try to remember. Either way, I'm going to end up with one long or short, or I could redraw in another line if that's the case too. But I'm going to do the last one, which is the outside edge of the branch, and it becomes the center line here. So this point that I just defined is where that branch edge falls down in on that header. That's as far down as it goes on the side going away from me. So what I kind of choose to do is like just use that's a hidden, that part of the miter on this particular development is hidden from me in view. So I don't draw it as a solid line. I draw it as a dash line. It starts here, like it's going to be a polyline. It's essentially like starts here and goes here and then down to here. So maybe I'll do an arc in a second point. This is the first place. Then it hits here. And then it goes as far down as what, like right here. I might not do that as an arc. I might do that more as a line. Or let me do an arc and a second point. And maybe it's like there to there. And then I'm going to finish it off here and terminate it back to there. So there, now that's what that looks like. So if I could look through that header and see where that weld joint was for the branch coming in, that's what it looks like. So I've kind of I've ghosted it in as a hidden line, kind of a dashed, broken up line. And that is kind of what it would look like. All right, and what I would do is like this information I may push to a new layer. I'm going to push that to my layer 2 that I made. That way I can turn it on and off. So now if I was up here and turn off my layer 2, I've just got a nice clean, like I've used all those reference materials just to get that bevel in there. So at this point we're ready to develop the branch, right? That's kind of my finished drawing. It's got this has the information I'll need to develop my header now with that miter ghosted in and drawn in, and this already had the information to develop a branch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and it'll be slightly it'll look different from the last 2 drawings that we had. So I'm going to push pause and draw that out, and then I'll talk through just how I drew that out. So, all right, we're back. I've got my branch development drawn. So I just got my line, figured the circumference. We were working with 2 3/4 inch branch. Looks like I started my development from this position, that center line closest to me on the branch here in the right side view, and then I just went around. Looks like I went around counterclockwise from that point. And so this is kind of what this is what that branch looks like. It's got this first half of the pipe. It's kind of got the gentle curve here is this right side of branch where it meets the header, and then where it's got the sharp point kind of resembles that sharp pointed when like diameter round-arounds intersect each other. So this has kind of got a combination look to it, and that's what my development pattern looks like. So it's not too much different from what we've done before. Just pull those lines. All that information is around here. You just got to remember that I start here and then I walk that out to that quarter mark there, and then I kind of walk that back if I'm thinking about going counterclockwise back to the center point. So that's why I get this gentle swoop back to here. And then once I hit that, I start coming, if I'm going counterclockwise, comes back around to this left side quarter mark and then back to the starting point. So I get this back to that quarter mark and then back to the finish line to where my pattern is the same length on both ends. All right. So then once I have done that, I work on the header now. So I was able to go ahead and figure the circumference of the header. I got my 10.2102, and it's 6 inches long. And so what I've done is just do my rectangle, and I found its center line as a reference point. So what I have essentially drawn in here, and kind of how I visualize my headers, is that that center line, I'm going to go ahead and put it at the top dead center here, or if I'm looking at the right side view, it's going to be at 12 o'clock position. That center line that I've represented down below on my header flat pattern is 12 o'clock in this view. So then I'm just gonna, I visualize from, if I'm visualizing my header that way, to me, this header is gonna roll kind of away from me if I was to form it up. So, which gives me like a way to develop this header and kind of keep things straight. Like I've got to, if I visualize that this is 12 o'clock and that this pattern is going to fold away from me, then to me that means that this side, or I would say, the upper half of the center line is going to be the kind of the gentle curve side of where that gentle curve of that branch meets that. And the lower side is going to be kind of where the branch is coming down into center line here. So if I was to visualize that, it would mean that the upper part of my header here, just take that, set it down. You kind of have to visualize that. I don't know how to explain it, but you'll see that's the way I develop it. And the first thing I like to pick up on is this distance. So I've located this center line down below on my pattern. What I want to locate is how much difference is from this center line over to the branch center line. So the first thing I do, maybe you've seen me use these dotted lines to do this, and a new color, whatever color. The first one to me, maybe I'll just use a white for this first circle. I want to pick up this distance from the center line of header to the center line of my branch that I'm trying to define below. So that length is my starting point, and that's just kind of a unique dimension that I only really need to like copy that down here. Copy that. I picked up that radius there to the center line of branch, and this tells me where my branch center line is going to be. And if I'm viewing this right, like it's to the, I'm going to drop this circle on the center line of my header, and then to me, the edge of this, if I go ahead and go to another center line, and maybe I'll go ahead and make that center line my white color, but this is going to be my center line of branch. So now I've just picked up the difference between the center line of header to the center line of branch. Now this white line, this becomes where I base all of my the distances that I'm going to pick up on the front view, and I kind of base them off of this as my center point of branch. So now what I'm ready to do is to possibly just like pop up a new layer, maybe a couple new layers, and I can get rid of that one right now, that reference point. I'm going to push those to like my layer 3, and I'll keep drawing on layer 0, but I'm going to turn off layer 3. Maybe I didn't push those to the right layer. Try again. Yeah, I had them on layer 0. Let's go to layer 3. It's going to tell me that they're moved into a layer that's turned off. That's okay. Okay. So I just got to remember, I could even delete that yellow line because it's just the center line of header, and if it confuses me, get rid of it. I'm just going to try to remember to put my patterns off of my true center line of branch compared to the header right here. So let's start with, I'm going to turn on one of my layers that has maybe the front side, the side closest to me in the front view, that miter. So let's, I think that was my layer, I think I just put that on layer 1, right? Yeah, right there. I'm going to turn that back on because it has my distances that I'm going to redraw here. So how do I want to do that? Maybe I'll just start with a purple circle here. And the first distance I'm picking up is from here to here. which is, you can see now where this matters, that this distance now is not equal on the other side. You can see that that magenta colored circle only picks up the distance on the branch coming down this side of the header, and it's different over here now. So that's going to be its own unique set of distances working the right side of branch. All right. And this would be picking up this distance. I still got to pick up that, and it's going to be to right there, to my solid line here. All right. I do need to pick up the distance here to start my pattern, and maybe, I don't know what's going to be easiest, but maybe I could just do a color that I'm not going to use anywhere else. This yellow distance here. It's actually the start of my branch on either side of header here. So that's the one. If I were to draw this, I'm going to copy it first because it represents my branch center line in the right side view. So that's the first one I'm going to drop onto the actual branch center line down here, right? I have a feeling it's not going to let me drop it where I want it, so I'll just move it a little bit. Oh, let me undo that. I don't like that. I didn't grab it from. If you ever see what I'm not liking the look of is that it doesn't line up. I didn't pick it from the right point when I copied it. So I'm just going to delete that. Let me go pick it up again in the front view. I'm just going to copy it. I just got to make sure I copy it in the right spot. There we go. Sometimes it'll pick up something perpendicular or slightly on it. Now this should let me drop it a little more accurate. I would hope. Zoom in a little closer here. Yeah, that looks better. That looks like they're laying on top of each other, so that's good. That's going to be my first distance. That's where my branch, the branch cutout is going to start. So I'm gonna do them all on this side and then mirror them across. So the next set, if I just go with my copy, is going to be that line. This distance, I mean. And it matches my magenta colored line here, right here. All right. And I'm going to pick me a new color here. And I'll first get my distance on the header. I've already picked up that as magenta. Let's pick up this as my light blue. That's this distance. Good. And I can go ahead and copy those. I can actually draw these and copy our lines. Whatever works well for you. If it works good to use one at a time, do that. Maybe I'll just pick up just another colored circle here for the last distance, which is this one here. And I'll pick up that line over here. So that's going to be end of header to the actual end of my pattern there. Good. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy these down. I didn't get my blue one yet, I don't think. Okay. I can repeat my copy. I'm going to grab my orange one. Now grab the lines that go with those. Let's go into the end of my intersection point on my blue circle, and the last one going to be this one. Yeah. So now I've got half that in, and I'm going to go ahead and mirror that over all of these lines. I'm going to mirror them over from the, pick this as my center point of mirror, and then just rotate these around so they come together. And do not erase the source object. So there we go. Now actually when I draw in that cutout, I like to use my red polyline. This is the start of my, this end of that yellow line there is the start of my pattern that I just drew in. Let's hook up all these points so I can kind of visualize what that cutout looks like. There should be a center line down here, yep, right there, where those two lines come together. And maybe I'll pick up, I could probably, like, I don't really like the look of that swooping in. Maybe I'll just do that as a straight line maybe and back up. If your cutouts don't look perfect, it's fine. I can get the idea. If I was making a cutout pattern, I might be a little more careful that I get nice curves, but this would be sufficient for actually to make some pretty good weld seams, just what I've got drawn. When I hand draw these with a French curve and a pencil, you know, it's like up to the drawer to do his best to interpret the line to line, you know, the curvature of that. So that's what that looks like, though. That's like what I've just ghosted in there. What I've just drawn in is what the cutout would look like in the side closest to me in this front view. So as that thing like would roll out flat, this is what it would look like, kind of a teardrop. So now all I'm left to do is finish from this point out for the more gentle looking cutout that would be on the right side of the branch in this front view here. So, or sorry, in the right side view, the actual right side of the branch. So this, you know, this information to me, I could move this stuff to the, I like to get it off of here. I could maybe move it to, you know, I can even get rid of these. I might move it to the layer that has the initial development, which I think I said was layer 1. So I move that stuff so to when the actual projection lines when I develop that in the front view, and I can go ahead and turn that off. And now I can turn back on my layer 2, and it has the rest of the information I need. So I'm going to repeat this process, and I might use some different colors if I can. Like I haven't used, maybe I'll use dark blue here. I don't have to worry about the top dead center of branch on this particular one because it is the same point where this one starts. That's what I've got there. So I've already figured out that one. These patterns come together right there, so I can kind of just step over to the distance from that point over to the first point right there. And then if I'm careful here, it's this is the distance on the header side that matches, which is going to be this line from right here over to the next point. Now that's the point they share in common, so this one actually is right there. That's that distance of the hidden view cutout. So I've got that one. I'm ready to take that information down below. That's easier to do when I color code this because I have a less chance to mess up if I just do them all like this and then copy and paste them below. So I'll just pick a new color. Maybe I'll do like a dark green. Whatever helps you keep it straight. So this is this one down to the next point. And that's this next distance here. Don't pay attention to the front side miter. Make sure you're looking at the back side hidden view miter on this one. That's it right there. And I've got one more to pick up, so one more color. What one haven't I used? I don't know. Maybe like this purple. Because this one is the distance from here to the end of my pattern here. And if some of these colors don't show up, you can choose a new color. If you know, when I zoom out, I can see them a little better. But if some of these you can't see very well, totally choose another color. Or make them all the same color if you don't mess up your lines. Okay, those are that's the last bit of information I need below. So let's copy those. Starts with a blue. Starts with a blue circle. And that's going to be off my center line here. So that's that point. And it's my green. And last is my darker purple. All right, let's get those distances on the header now. There's my dark blue line. And green. All right, let's see. Green right there. And the last one is my purple line, which is all the way halfway across the pattern. That meets up to the center point here. Same as my last line here. So this ends up being half the pattern, half the 6-inch dimension there. So there they are. Let's mirror those across. I don't need to mirror that one again. I've already got it. So it's just a matter of mirroring this one, these last three that I defined. And I usually do this by the center line of my header pattern, swing them around, drop them, and I just messed it up. So let's do a redo. It's going to be right there. Don't erase my source object. There it is. So now it's just left for me to just finish drawing that in. Go back to my red solid line. As a poly line, I can go ahead and start it as a, and that's going to be right there, and over to here, to there, and back to the start. So ends up looking like this. This is what the cutout for the header would look like. And I can go ahead and move that stuff to another layer if I need to clean up my pattern. So that kind of concludes what that looks like. That's the branch development and the header development. And this really sets us up, and now we're ready to do what the forge, what the gas inlet piping to the forge housing look like. So we've kind of done round-arounds like diameters, round-arounds different diameters, and then a round-around off-center. And we're ready for what the forge looks like. Yeah, it's got 2 penetrations for the gas to come into the housing. They're off-center. They're not clear to flush to one side, but they're definitely off-center. And so the next assignment will be what a forge housing looks like. So we'll see you on that one.